What's up guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic part 2. Which is what if Naruto was exiled from Konoha and marked for death part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel Anime Hub 1.2 for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. The two branch members were put down with single strikes. Their limp bodies crashed into a vendor's stall. Incidentally, this was a vendor that threatened Naruto with a butcher knife several times when he was looking for food. The stall was shattered and dogs raced in and stole the meat as it hit the ground. The merchant screamed at the animals, but most people were watching the Hyuga drama that was being shown to them all. Surrender Hiashi, and you'll walk out of here with your life. Vengeance, Hinata said. The girl's skin was now bone white and her hair had taken on a blackness as had her Byakugan eyes. Demon, I will exorcise you from my daughter and then punish her for the disrespect she has shown the family. Hiashi snarled, entering his own Jukin stance. Kukukukuku. You think that you can stand up to us? Vengeance, Hinata asked, ing an eyebrow. We have been trained by the Godime Hokage herself. You have been wasting away kissing the of a council that killed your wife and turned you against your Kai. Eldren, how dare you? Hiashi ranted. I dare a lot, fool. I have seen this shell's life, I watched everything, and things she might not have noticed, I have. Villagers were backing away as the killing intent in the air seemed to thicken. Today the village was seeing Hinata, the chosen shell for the spirit of vengeance. Today secrets were going to come out, and sadly, Laundry Day looked like it was going to be hell. Many of the villagers realized that they were screwed. The ones that had nothing to worry about cheered the young Hyuga on. Across a Jonin turned Genin shuddered. I sense a disturbance in the force. He muttered as he shook the chill from his spine and returned to his D-rank mission for the day. Atop several buildings masked Anbu watched. They'd been ordered by the Hokage to watch only. They were not to interfere with Hinata unless she was losing. A purple-haired Anbu watched as the Hyuga head in the air circled. Hiashi is a fool. Can't he see that the style Hinata is using is stronger? Apparently not, as Hiashi attacked, thinking his daughter was still the same stuttering girl he used to intimidate. Hinata's chakra spike sliced into Hiashi's palm and he screamed in pain as he saw a hole through his hand. What's the matter, Daddy? Did that hurt? Vengeance, Hinata asked mockingly. It's amazing what one can learn when trained in a proper style that's fit for them. Hinata's next 3 strikes had Hiashi on his knees, his wounded hand shed to his torso that was bruised, his shirt torn from wear high. Nada had struck him, all could see the pale skin purpling from the blows. Several figures appeared at the end of the street. The Konoha 9 had arrived and they were seeing Hinata in a whole new light. What's going on over there? Ino asked as she was walking with the others. Who knows, it's too troublesome to worry about. Guess who? Neji paused, his Byakugan activated. He'd been dragged along by his teammates, no one noticing how quickly he'd given into the. His eyes widened. Hinata, what about your cousin? Ten asked from where she had an arm looped through his and Lee's. She told the others that it was to keep both boys from bolting. She's fighting Hiashi-sama. Neji seemed to choke on that and Ino grabbed Shikamaru and Choji and pulled them along. Kiba and Shino, who'd been with them, followed. Akamaru whined as they got closer. What's wrong with yo? Whoa. Kiba's question to his partner was silenced as they watched Hinata put the 2 branch members down. With 1 strike each. When did Hinata get that good? Neji's eyes watched and widened even more when she struck Hiashi. She's different. Most of them had seen Hinata in passing her for a quick lunch, but as the apprentice to the Hokage, they'd not really seen her. Yosh. Her fires burn brightly. Lee yelled, watching as the once timid girl struck Hiashi 3 more times. Neji winced as his Byakugan saw the damage those blows were doing. He'd been warned by Gai-sensei about provoking Hinata, he wouldn't. He'd been on good terms with his cousin since his defeat at the hands of Naruto during the Chunin exams. But he saw why Gai seemed worried. Team 9 had been worried about their sensei over the last few months, he hadn't been his usual self. The Konoha 8 looked on as Hinata spoke to Hiashi. They were too far back to hear what was being said, but they could feel the killing intent from Hinata from where they were. Akamaru whimpered and burrowed into Kiba's jacket. The Inuzuka looked on. She's different. Akamaru says the vibes from Hinata remind him of that Gara kid from Suna. Shino was silent, but his bugs were telling him that Hinata was the same in many ways, but there was an aura of power that wasn't there before. Choji ate a couple of chips, his eyes watching the once timid girl trounce her father who they knew used to verbally abuse her at every opportunity. Shikamaru sighed and muttered troublesome, but his eyes were taking in the information and he was compiling questions to ask the Hokage. He was Chunin and it was his responsibility. Being responsible is such a drag. Shikamaru thought as Ino stood there wide-eyed. The 8 of the 9 watched their last member and knew that she was different and they were worried what it meant. Amazing Hiashi. I thought you wanted this shell to be stronger. But I see that was a lie. You were never pleased with any success she had. You always beat her down, mentally, verbally, and then you used your other daughter and the branch members to do it physically. Vengeance, Hinata said as she ducked under a wild strike from Hiashi and she lashed out, hitting his arm 3 times. The once regal-looking robes he wore now were hanging on by threads as her chakra-powered strikes tore them from him, and left the skin underneath blackened by bruises. When Naruto-kun comes back we shall change the Hyuga for the better. I'll kill that damn demon before I let him touch you. Hiashi said. You could hear a pin drop in Konoha. At the end of the street Neji winced. He'd read Hinata's and Hiashi's lips and knew that was the worst thing his uncle could have said to Hinata. Ten felt him tense and leaned in. What happened? She whispered in his ear. Hiashi threatened to kill Naruto after Hinata informed him that she and Naruto would change the Hyuga. For the better. He has just sealed his fate. The Hyuga male said and looked on as Lee put a hand on his shoulder and Ten tightened her grip on both of them. Back with Hinata she stepped back and her black eyes seemed to blaze with passion. Her cold voice became even colder as her hand lashed out and she grabbed Hiashi and her hand splayed out over his temple and face. Think Vulcan mind meld. So many secrets Hiashi. She said. You knew the Kyuubi was coming. You had branch members there attacking it, Danzo, Orochimaru, who is the one in the robes Hiashi. Sorcerer. Hinata's eyes became lidded and she pushed power into her search. Hiashi went to his knees in pain as his daughter possessed by vengeance dug through his mind faster than a Yamanaka. Power. You stupid fool. You betrayed Konoha for power and covered it up. The Hyuga Council knew, mother. Hinata broke contact and staggered back. You monster. Hinata's skin became flushed and her eyes flickered between white and black. You killed mother. You had her killed to hide your dirty secrets. Vengeance, Hinata said, the black eyes becoming darker and veins around the eyes hardening even more. You were responsible for Naruto-kun's pain. You had branch members tell the villagers about Naruto being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. You told merchants to refuse him service and paid them for it. You call him demon and monster. It is you who are the monster Hiashi Hyuga. I see it all now. The Hyuga clan are a disease. I see now why Itachi did what he did. You and Fugoku Uchiha wanted him to assassinate Naruto-kun. He refused and Fugoku ordered his death. It backfired and Itachi killed his clan to protect Naruto-kun from them. Quote. Gasps were heard around the street. The Piper was coming and it was payday. Vengeance, Hinata's eyes looked around, her black Byakugan eyes landing upon Neji at the end of the street. Neji Onisan, return to the compound, take Hanabi, and the branch members along with Minami-chan of the main house and go to the Hokage Tower. Her eyes went to Hiashi who was still on his knees. Hell is coming Hiashi. A cleansing of the Hyuga is the only way I see. The corruption runs deep into the old generation. It is time to be a phoenix and the Hyuga rise from the ashes of your death. No. Hiashi said through the pain. His eyes scanned the crowd and saw the Anbu watching. KK kill her. Shish, she broke the third's law. He said. The cat-masked Anbu held up a hand and shook her hand. As the Hokage's apprentice she can speak about it Hyuga-san. Hiashi looked around for a way to escape. His head turned back towards Hinata as her hand slammed into his forehead. People watched in shock as the back of his head blew off and his brain slammed into the street, severed from the spinal column cleanly by the chakra strike from Hinata. Vengeance served. She went and picked up her basket as if nothing had happened. She walked towards the end of the street where the other rookies were frozen in place. Neji and his team having left after Hinata gave her instructions. Hinata paused and looked over her shoulder, her skin color returning to normal and her eyes a gray now. Consider your actions. This is your one and only warning. You mistreat Naruto-kun again, and what I've done to Hiyashi will seem like a midsummer night's dream. Hinata looked at the rookies and sighed. Anyo, I suppose I have some explaining to do. When they said nothing but stared at her, she sighed. Let me drop these off at my apartment and deal with my claw, with the Hyugas. But you're a Hyuga. Ino said, breaking out of her shock. No, I haven't been for some time, but maybe someday I will be someone else. Maybe someday I'll be an Uzumaki Kazama. Hinata thought, and she could hear the agreement of the vengeance spirit in the back of her mind. As she walked away from the remains of her father, already planning what to do with the main branch of the Hyugas who mistreated Naruto and betrayed Konoha, the remaining rookies looked from the brainless corpse of Hiyashi as he knelt there, the back of his head blown out. They wondered what had happened. Pened to the sweet stuttering girl they all knew. It was Shino who turned and followed his teammate without a word, the others taking a bit of time to catch up. 1 year later, Naruto Uzumaki had changed in the 15 months since his exile from Konoha. He'd put on some wiry muscle mass, his features had become more slender, his hair longer and was now tied back in a ponytail. His features had a hint of the fox as his ears now had slight points to them, his whisker marks were deeper and his canine teeth were a bit longer. He'd even allowed Micah to add black highlights to his hair one night when they were bored while Master Kwai was off playing shogi. Since the day of fighting the bandits, Naruto spent more time training. His mental capacity increased as he learned through meditation and the use of cage bunshin. He'd originally planned on having 100 clones read Master Kwai's library, till Q scolded him. Flashback. Kit, that's not a good idea. Your mind is a mess. Till you clean up in here, I wouldn't do that. Quote, well, how the hell do I do that, Q? Naruto said. He was once more outside the seal and he looked around the sewer that was his mindscape. There are techniques I will teach you. They will help you when I start teaching you the way of the Zot Nin later on. Kyuubi said. You ever going to tell me more about that? Naruto asked as he got comfortable in a lotus position. When you're ready. You can't run before you learn to walk, Kit. Your time with Kwai has done wonders for your kenjutsu and taijutsu. Your work with the Dragon Hanyu has cleaned up years of neglect on your chakra control. Would you stop calling Micah a Hanyu? He's not a demon, Naruto said. Snort, Kit, he's at least 1/4 demon blood in his veins. He may be several generations down, but it's there, just like that freak that worked for the Snake Tem. Kabuto, the one that nearly killed you and your adopted granny. Naruto remembered that battle. The chakra strike to his heart had nearly killed him if not for Tsunade's determination and Kyuubi pushing a large amount of chakra into the wound to form a chakra bandage until Tsunade was able to save him. Now, once we organize your thoughts, I'm going to teach you an ancient form of protection to shield your mind from nin like that Yamanaka. Quote, from Ino. Why, other than the obvious? Naruto asked. Kit, there are beings out there that are strong Sai. They have abilities that make some of the stuff you ninja look like idiots for going about it the hard way. Kyuubi said. Now, to clear your mind. End flashback. Once his mind had been cleaned and organized, he'd learned how to alter his mental landscape. It no longer was a sewer, instead it was the streets of Konoha and surrounding forest. The Kyuubi's cage was gone as well, instead the fox was allowed to roam, but the seal was now a collar around the fox's neck, the seal etched into the metal band. Naruto's use of cage bunshins to learn was only 3 at a time and he'd dispel them an hour apart to prevent himself from a mental overload. He would then spend 3 hours in meditation with Kyuubi organizing them and putting them in mental scrolls in the center of his mind, the Hokage Tower, which he'd added runes to, in case anyone got through the mental maze and traps he'd designed. And if they get past Q on top of that, Naruto thought with a chuckle. Kyuubi agreed to help protect his mind, should someone get past the traps and maze. Another thing to change was Naruto's wardrobe. Micah with help of several of the villagers managed to get Naruto a new look and burn his old clothes. Naruto had to laugh remembering how his friend had done it. Flashback. Come on, Ruto, a soak in the springs will ease up those muscles and we can meet Master Kwai in the village before the harvest celebration begins. So Naruto stripped down to his boxers, slipped into the hot spring they'd found on the east side of the mountain. He was relaxing and was just about to put his head back when he saw his clothes floating on the air. He turned and saw Micah smirk before the clothes went flying away and into the arms of several of the village youths. Hey! Naruto cried out, standing up to give chase, only to have a gust of air slam into him and knock him over. By the time he'd emerged from the air-assisted dunking, the kids were gone with his clothes. Damn it, Micah! Naruto rounded to find his friend standing away from the spring with a box hovering in the air. Enough is enough, it's time for a change. Micah said. Master Kwai can get away wearing orange, he never leaves the mountain. You however stand out like a pervert at a onsen during Women's Day. Naruto growled and Micah growled right back. The villagers got together and made you these. He said, putting the clothes down. Naruto, still in the water, untied the string around the box and opened it. There were brand new pants with orange stripe down the sides of the legs. He saw the pants had numerous pockets. There were new shirts, long and short sleeve, and Naruto smiled that while they were black there were orange tiger stripes around the ribs. There were also new boots and fingerless gloves with metal plates on the back of the knuckles. And this is from me. Micah said, drawing his attention. Hanging from a branch was a brand new jacket. It was a rust orange that was dark, and on the back was the symbol for the fox merged with the spee. Raw design of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto looked at him speechless. He was unsure how to express his thanks and he swallowed the lump in his throat. They accept you, Kit. And those clothes are better than that orange monstrosity you wore. Q added his to Ryo. End flashback. Naruto shook his head and looked over his shoulder. Micah too had changed a bit. His hair was longer, and his face was a bit more angular. Right now he was playing on his dragon bone flute, his eyes closed as the melody washed over him and filled the air with its calming tunes. Over the past 15 months the pair had learned a lot about sword techniques from Master Kwai, and while they couldn't beat him, they could force him back and push to a draw, as long as they worked together. Naruto felt at peace, and of course it was when he was at peace, that it seemed Kami-like to shake up his life. Naruto-san. He turned to see Master Kwai coming towards him, a scroll in his hand. I need to discuss things with you and Micah-san. First, I have found something that will allow Q out of the seal so he may begin his teachings, however it is not without cost. Naruto looked at the Shaolin and waited. It would cost you and Micah-san something. The melody of the flute stopped and Micah rose from where he'd been sitting under the tree in Master Kwai's garden and he approached. What would it cost exactly? Micah asked. For Naruto, it would cost him some chakra. Master Kwai said and both boys exchanged a glance. Well, that don't sound too bad. Naruto said. I have a lot of that. Indeed, nearly limitless now. Kwai agreed. His wizened eyes then turned towards Micah. For you however, the cost would be much greater. Ukeke Genkai, the bloodfire you got from your father. In order to use this spell it would be sacrificed as the main payment. Quote. Naruto swallowed and looked at Micah. Don't. We'll find another way. He said to his silver-haired friend. Or we won't. Micah said in thought. Was that all you were able to find in the Book of Ramhu? He asked their mentor. Hi. The only other option would be, it would take sacrificing a large group of people to perform a temporal jump. That isn't very precise or described. The author warned that it could result in the user's death. Quote. Naruto shook his head. I'll do it. Micah said. Nani? Naruto spun and looked at his friend. Why? Micah looked at him. Kyuubi has much to teach you, and me. If it costs me a Keke Genkai that I could careless about, then so be it. I still have my bloodline from my mother's side. I'm more comfortable with that. Micah told him, his golden eyes fixing on Naruto, begging him to let him do this to help. Naruto looked at Kwai. What will this do to Q-san? He asked the Shaolin monk. He will still be in you, but he will be able to be summoned out as a shade. Kwai explained. While he is out, you will be sharing your chakra with him. Master Kwai explained. Q. What do you think? Naruto asked. Kit, if this works, I've seen what shades can do, and I won't need chakra once I'm out. I should be able to use Vunla, so I won't put a drain on you. And you will explain Zot Nins and Vunla in better detail, right? Naruto asked. Of course, Kit. To both you and the young dragon Hanyu. Kyuubi said. Stop calling him a Hanyu, please. Very well, Kit. Thank Micah for his sacrifice and tell Kwai we'll do this as soon as he's ready. Quote, Master Kwai. Naruto said, getting the monk's attention. Q says we can begin whenever you're ready. He then looked at Micah. And he says thank you for the sacrifice of your Kekai Genkai. Micah shrugged. It helps us both in the end. Naruto nodded. You know, in Konoha, they would throw a fit if they heard about losing a bloodline like that. Well, it's a good thing only you and the old man knew about it before I left then. Micah said. He turned back to Master Kwai. What will we need to do? Konoha. Tsunade sighed as she read over the reports from the border patrol. In the past year, bandit sightings have dropped in reports that small villages had found someone to protect them. One of the reports sounded like it was Naruto and some kid with silver hair. She thought as she looked over another scroll. Shizune. She called out and her brunette apprentice came in with a stack of files. You have a meeting this morning with the new village council, and your afternoon session with the remaining Hyuga members with Jiraiya in the alteration of the caged bird seal. She said. Yes. Where's that report from the hunter nins? Why haven't they caught Danzo or his root members yet? Shizune sighed. They went to ground. Reports came in that Danzo was seen in Otogakure. We sent in an assassination squad, but they never reported back. Shizune said as she shuffled folders. Tsunade sighed. Any sign of Naruto by any of the patrols or teams on missions? She asked as it had become her daily ritual since the blonde's exile 15 months ago. Sorry, no. Shizune said sadly. Tsunade looked at the file before her. There were less than 20 members of the Hyuga clan left. Hanabi, while recognized as the heir, now deferred judgment to a pair of branch members, Cho Hyuga and Lisu Hyuga. The two older women advised the young girl, and so far the Hyuga were recovering. Hinata had removed herself from her clan after that day. The day she rained vengeance down upon her clan for what they'd done. Anbu had waited outside the compound and killed those that tried to escape. The ones that Neji had removed were the only Hyuga left alive after that day. The altered seal, it blocks the theft of the Byakugan, but it can't be used for punishment anymore. Jiraiya had told her after he'd made the alterations to Neji's seal first under the watchful eyes of Hinata that day. Tsunade shook her head. Jiraiya's recovered from Hinata's vengeance then. She asked her assistant and friend. Hi. The paralysis wore off and he's able to gather chakra once more. Tsunade had been furious when she learned that Jiraiya's teaching method. Sadly, Hinata had heard her yelling, and once she touched Jiraiya and saw it, she'd unloaded on him. Where is Hinata this morning? She asked. Shizune smirked. I think. A scream from across the village could be heard, and Shizune continued as if nothing had happened. She's working with a genin about reading pornography in public. Quote. Tsunade smirked. Over the past year, Hinata had gone out of her way to make Kakashi Hataki's life a living hell. On top of burning his collection of prized Ika books, Hinata would, as the Hokage's apprentice, pick a sparring partner. Kakashi had lost the use of his Sharingan in the first spar. Tsunade had been able to replace the damaged eye with a normal brown eye. Hinata seemed to pick up Naruto's pranking habits, as Kakashi would appear around the village after a resulting explosion. One time his hair looked like a rainbow. Another time his clothes were dyed neon pink, and no one would sell clothes to him. His mask had been taken and Kakashi had spent weeks running away of village women, and several shinobi chased after him asking for dates, marriage, or just outright. Someone had spiked Kakashi's food with peanut butter and he'd broken out in a body-wide rash. Someone, guess who, had checked his medial records and found out he was allergic to peanut butter. Wonder what she's done to him this time. Shizune said as she continued to sort files. It's taking her a lot of time to go through his memories. He had a memory block on him for his time as an Anbu, and she's slowly chipping away at it. Tsunade said. And I think she mentioned something about his summons needing a workout. In the distance they could hear a lot of dogs barking. How does she do that? Shizune wondered. No, not there. Not there. Paku unnn. Tsunade shook her head. I think she promised Pakun steak dinner. As for how she deals with the summons, I think that's part of the spirit's domain. I've seen her with my slugs and Jiraiya's toads on several occasions, and I didn't summon them, nor show her how. I checked the contract and she isn't listed either. The pair worked on the pile of paperwork. You know, if I didn't know better, I'd say paperwork is a curse of some kind. It never goes away and it always multiplies. Tsunade said. Shizune smiled. Since Hinata had become Tsunade's apprentice, the Hokage had become more lighthearted, and drank less. She looked out the window and sent a silent prayer. Kami, please bring Naruto-kun back. If not for Lady Tsunade, then for Hinata. She's becoming more a beautiful young woman, and she's doing it for him. Port. I'm sorry Lady Tsunade, I must have zoned out, what was that? Shizune asked looking embarrassed. I asked for the medical report on Sakura. Shizune nodded and looked through her stack. Inochi says that she's finally responding to treatments, but it's slow going. He's going to walk her through her life and it will take time as they put her mind back together after Hinata's penance stare. Quote. Tsunade sighed. Tell him to keep on it. We'll see if we can recover her, but she backslides then next time she pisses off Hinata over Naruto I won't be looking for ways to help her. She's lucky she was left alive. Shizune said. Oh, reports also on Sasuke. There was a spike in brain activity recently. Tsunade glared. Post a pair of Anbu outside his room. If that little shit wakes up I plan on putting him on trial for that abandoning the village stunt he pulled. Quote. Tsunade looked out the window for a moment. Are you going to do something about the borders near Oto and Iwa? We'll discuss that in council. Have Shikamaru come up with some tactics. And you are meeting with the kunoichi from Suna? Shizune asked. Tsunade sighed. Gaara's sister. She made a note on a scroll herself. Have her speak with Shikamaru. They seem to get along well. Tsunade thought as she looked at the stack of paperwork on her desk. Did this pile get bigger when I blinked? She asked Shizune who looked at it and scratched her cheek and wondered the same thing. Mikahamaru Melwasu and Naruto Uzumaki sat back to back in the middle of a 6-point star circle. Runes were painted onto the stone floor and on their bare torsos. Master Kwai was finishing up putting symbols on Naruto's face and was arching the rune towards his back where he continued it on Micah's neck and face. This is taking forever. Naruto complained. The beginning of the spell is alchemy. It's a lost science from generations past. Some of which has been rediscovered, but the true mastery of it was lost in wars long ago. Kwai said as he continued to draw designs on the boys, his feet deftly stepping over the painted lines and runes on the floor. And hold still. He admonished Naruto who was about to scratch his nose, but the Shaolin slapped his hand. Don't smear those or I'll have to wash you down and start over from the beginning. My butt fell asleep. Naruto complained. Hey, Micah, how you doing? Naruto asked. A soft snore was his only answer. You bastard, wake up. Micah snorted and opened his eyes. We ready yet? He asked yawning. Kwai pulled the brush back and glared at the pair before him. No, stop moving and no talking. This is delicate work and a sigil designed wrong could kill you, or worse. Quote. Worse. You never mentioned worse Kwai Ojiazan. Naruto said. I did, you were just too busy picking your nose. Remind Lord Kyuubi that you both will feel pain during the process. Hey Q. I heard him the first time Kit. Meditate like your friend. Micah wasn't meditating, he was sleeping. Naruto countered. Or he meditated so deep it looked like he was asleep. The Kyuubi said and Naruto could hear the chuckle in the demon fox's voice. I'm surrounded by Tems and perverts. Naruto mentally pouted. Since he'd been there he learned Master Kwai enjoyed reading those orange books, but at least he now only did it in his room since Micah and Naruto tried to get it away from him for reading it in the garden. Naruto also learned Q was a pervert and tried to get Naruto to look for a decent mate. Naruto threatened to put him in a pink collar and seal him in a room with disgusting childish things he'd seen other kids with when he was growing up. So far that kept Q silent. It was Micah that surprised him. His best friend when they went to the village was always surrounded by older women who asked him to play his flute. It was during that time that Naruto found out while he played Micah would use his wind affinity to have the air massage women. Got to admit, he knows how to get them worked up. Kyuubi said. Stop. I can't believe he was doing that. Naruto griped. Kit. They enjoyed it, and it also helped him learn control. Kyuubi snickered. Remember the baker's wife? Naruto scowled. Oh, don't be like that Kit. Her moans were something, and she looked ravishing biting her lip while surrounded by the other women trying to keep quiet. Naruto shook his head. Q and Micah had given him a talk about. Micah using a scroll from Master Kwai's vast library and explaining how they should wait until at least 16. Q on the other hand was pushing information on how to attract a mate, how to please her and how to bring her to multiple orgasms. Hentai Fox, Arrow Q. Naruto thought. And proud of it. Kyuubi answered. Say, Kit, if you write to the toad pervert, see if he'll send you his complete works. From what I've seen of the ones Kwai has. Arrow Fox. Naruto yelled out loud and Kwai paused in mid-brushstroke and looked at Naruto. Micah chuckled as he knew what was going on as Naruto had shared everything with him about the fox. Asking for Ika again? Micah asked, his voice low, a hint of a laugh in it. Damn pervy Kyuubi. Naruto mumbled and Kwai raised an eyebrow then chuckled. Naruto sulked. Perverts. Surrounded by perverts. He muttered. Micah laughed outright. Bro, everyone's a pervert on some level. Even you. Naruto would have jumped up, but the glare from Kwai kept him in his place, if barely. Nearly done with the preparations, boys. He told them. Naruto sighed. He'd thought about sending a message to Jiraiya several times and some of his friends back in Konoha, but he figured that they were probably all glad he was gone. I don't want to put Ero Sanin in a position to choose between me and Tsunade. Naruto thought sadly. He still remembered seeing her signature and the Hokage seal at the bottom of the scroll. It hurt every time he thought about it. You're afraid. Afraid that the Toad Sanin would choose Tsunade over you. You don't want to know if he would choose you. Q said sadly. Why would he choose me over his teammate? Natuto thought. I'm just an orphan with a demon in his belly. An exile that no one wanted in their precious village. Kid, when you're stronger, when I've taught you and Mikahamaru the way of the Zot, build an army and level it then. They don't care about you, so return the favor and the pain 100-fold. Quote, but what about my friends? What friends? The only one I've seen in your memories to treat you with any respect was that Hyuga girl and Mikahamaru and the third Hokage, the rest of them. Q said, I earned the respect of the others over time. Bullshit Kit. When that pink-haired Harridan attacked you after bringing back the Uchiha, not one of them stopped her from beating you down, adding to the wounds you had. The Hyuga girl spoke up. If she had more confidence she would make a fine mate, but she's so timid she scares herself. Hinata-chan just lacks confidence. You heard how her cousin talked to her and from what I've seen over the years, her whole family treated her like that. Naruto from the shadows had seen how the others interacted with the families. His blue eyes held a hint of longing every day when the other students would be picked up by their mothers or fathers, or older siblings. Except Hinata. Naruto thought. She would be picked up by a branch member or that red-eyed woman who became her Jonin instructor. Village full of favoritism. The Uchiha will probably be made Hokage if he wakes up from that coma we put him in. Q taunted. Why are you sounding like this now? Naruto asked. Because Kit. They hurt you. All your life. You've viewed your memories of the beatings, of the abuse over all the years. Even after you beat Gaara and Shukaku, they gave that win to the Uchiha. They called your win over the Hyuga prodigy a fluke. You went with the Toad Hermit and brought back the Slug Sanin to be Hokage and still it got you nothing but contempt and scorn. Tell me Kit, one thing that the Leaf Village has done for you. Quote, Konohamaru recognized me as a friend and rival. He sees me as his older brother. Hinata's always been nice to me, even if she's a bit weird. Uruka-sensei. Ah, yes, Yumino. Let's talk about him for a moment. Did he help you over the years? No. He made fun of you in clan wouldn't help you learn. When you asked he'd make fun of you and leave you on your own. He did nothing till it was nearly too late. I'll give him that, but he doesn't deserve the term of Sensei Kit. It took nearly 15 months to clean up your taijutsu of constant work, the same with your chakra control. If he had been a sensei, he would have taught you properly, not wait to care till you had a powerful scroll in your hands to keep it out of others' hands. Kyuubi said, we'll talk more of this when I'm out and about Kit. The monk is ready I believe. Naruto opened his eyes and saw Kwai out of the circle and putting his brush and paint aside. He took several deep breaths. Are you both ready? He asked. Hi, Micah said and Naruto could feel him tremble against his back slightly. Bring it on Kwai Ojiazan. Naruto said flashing the Shaolin a fox-like grin. Brace yourselves, here comes the pain. Kwai said, and his hands were a blur of motion as he did nearly 100 hand signs in less than half a minute. He clapped his hands together and slammed them down onto the circle on a pair of runes. There was a flash of light and Naruto saw red energy crackle before he and Micah were screaming in pain. In his mind he could hear Kyuubi's own pain-filled cry mix with his. The runes on their bodies glowed with a red-white light and lightning crackled over their skin. Both were soon surrounded by Kit fire and Naruto's yells became growls and behind him Micah could be heard growling as well. Kwai looked on, his hands still planted on the runes, his wizened eyes watching. Naruto's blue eyes became red with slits in the mirror that Kwai set up. He could see Micah's face and saw the golden eyes become reptilian and red veins form around the iris. Both boys arched their backs and their howls of pain became mixed. Wind whipped around and Kwai saw that the candles were being lifted into the air, but they didn't warble once. He saw cracks appearing along the floor and the nearby trees seemed to be reaching out. Kwai wondered which of the two that was. It could have been an eternity, or it could have been a couple of minutes, but slowly the red light faded as did the white lightning. The candles lowered back down. Kwai watched as the runes melted into the boy's skin. The last of the red energy faded and both boys slumped back, smoke rising from their skin. Kwai finally sat back and saw his hands were red as if blistered. He stroked a hand through his beard and quirked an eyebrow. Now, we wait, he muttered. Konoha. Tsunade looked at the new village council, and she was not impressed. Wonder if I can get Hinata in here to do clean up again. Tsunade thought as the new group were just as short-sighted as the previous group. He should be marked as a missing nin. Koko Haruno yelled. Tsunade sighed. Why did they have to put that loud pink-haired banshee on the council? I swear Kami hates me. Tsunade thought. Uzumaki Naruto will not be marked as a missing nin. Tsunade said loudly, cutting off everyone. The previous council forged my signature and stole the Hokage seal to exile him. I have teams on the lookout for him to get him back here. Naruto is a hero of this village and you people better shape up. Quote. Or what, Lady Tsunade? One arrogant merchant asked. You will meet the same fate as your predecessors. Everyone turned to a shadowed form near the entrance and many of them shifted their seats back as Hinata stepped further into the room. Tsunade looked at her apprentice and nodded to her. Hinata shifted back to normal in an eye blink. Anyo, Shizune asked me to remind you, Lady Tsunade, that Gaara wishes to speak with you after you're done with these people. Hinata said, giving the Hokage a bow, while her eyes showed disdain for the gathered council. Hinata turned to go, she stopped hearing a council member mutter, damn demon horse should be run out of town. Quote. And pray tell Honorable Bulma-san, are you to go against a creation of Kami? Several people could be heard swallowing as Hinata turned once more to face the gathered council. Lady Tsunade allowed this council to be reformed out of the kindness of her heart. You fools all need to remember the council is here to advise and help with the administration of paperwork, not dictate affairs. Less than a month gathered and already you are making the same mistakes as the previous council. Quote. Tsunade shook her head. Hinata had become very protective of people she knew were precious to Naruto before his exile. Don't waste the chance you've been given, and should any of you go against the Hokage, or Naruto-kun, then you go against me. With that Hinata shushined out of the room. Tsunade looked at the gathered council. Now, you all will report to the Hokage Tower for assignments. I will no longer be doing everyone's paperwork. I will only be doing what is needed to be done by the Hokage. Village matters like merchants and day-to-day operations are yours. The ninja and overall is mine. If I find any more paperwork for foolish matters on my desk, or if one of you inserts a replication rune on a paper on my desk again, I will deal with you personally. Quote. Tsunade punched the wall behind her and it exploded into gravel. And if any of you try anything against Hinata, well, I'm sure she won't leave much of you to deal with. She is vengeance given flesh. She's very protective of Naruto and those he felt were precious to him. And there are nin in this village that are the same way. If this council becomes a hindrance, I will dissolve it. You can't, the Fire Daimyo. I have his full support. He was most displeased to hear what this village has done not only to a hero like Naruto, but to a son of a Hokage. Quote. You lie, Haruno screeched. That thing isn't Namikaze's son. It's all propaganda. Nope. It is the truth. But then again, You need to be stupid not to see the resemblance. But I guess Konoha isn't as special as everyone thinks. If you missed the lesson a year ago, then you truly are stupid. Tsunade turned and walked away. See Iruka for your assigned stations, and I hope you all know how to write your names, cause you're going to be doing a lot of paperwork. Quote, Anne. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes. He closed them at the bright light and realized that the sun was up, meaning he'd been out all night long. You okay? Naruto thought. Naruto sat up blinking when he didn't get a response. He looked around and saw he was in his bed inside the temple. He saw he was still wearing his pants and he dug around for a shirt and pulled it on when he hit the door and went and saw Micah still unconscious in his own bed. Naruto went through the temple corridors and his eyes found Master Kwai sitting on his cushion sipping his tea. Naruto blinked seeing a tall man outlined in blue, and he could see through him. The man had to be at least 6'8". He had long red hair and his clothes here black. He wore a robe that was a red-brown that reminded Naruto of fox fur. The man turned to Naruto and he smirked. Naruto asked seeing the red eyes with the slits. The man nodded and Naruto saw he had a trimmed beard and mustache, think of Obi-Wan's style. Hey Kit, Q said, his voice still deep. Sleep well? The shade asked. How? Naruto blinked. Why are you human? Quote. Q chuckled and looked at Kwai. It is my fault I am afraid. I wasn't focused on the form I would use. Q admitted. It is my fault actually Naruto-san. Kwai admitted. I neglected to inform you and Kyuubi-sama that he would need to pick his form. Since he didn't and you were his host, his shade is human. Naruto blinked. See can you become a fox still? He asked. Kyuubi sighed. We made a few mistakes Kit. I'm out of you still have my chakra, and I'm stuck like this. He gestured to himself with a gloved hand. Naruto came closer and reached out and found his hand passing through Q. You're a ghost. Shade. I can use Bunla with no problems. Well it took me almost all night to move a teacup, but I should be back up to par by the end of the week and ready to tea. Rain you and Micah in the way of the Zot. Naruto looked at the shade before him. I messed up. You're like this forever. Kyuubi sighed and looked at Kwai. You did nothing wrong Kit. This was no way your fault. Kyuubi said. Kyuubi-sama, what do you plan on doing with them? Master Kwai asked sipping his tea. I will need you to open a portal for me. I'm taking them to the Underverse. I need to take them to the demon graveyard and begin their training in the ways of the Zot. Quote. How will you return? Kwai asked a hint of concern in his voice for the two boys he'd come to care for over the last 17 months. I know people on the other side. A few owe me. When it's time we shall return. Kyuubi looked at Naruto. We'll leave at the end of the week Kit. Rest up. Once we cross over your training begins again, and our dynamic will change once again. What do you mean Q? Naruto asked. You, and Mikahamaru will be my apprentices, or by T in the old tongue. In turn you will call me master. Naruto frowned at that. Don't give me that look Kit. Senpai, sensei, master are all forms of respect. While you are my by T, I am your teacher, and you are my apprentices. I will teach you both all I know. Naruto sighed. I just keep going from one perverted sensei to another. Kakashi, Ebisu, Jiraiya, Master Kwai and now Master Q. He looks up at the ceiling. Do you hate me for some reason Kami? Kwai and Kyuubi chuckle. Don't you know Kit, she has a wicked sense of humor. Mikahamaru woke hours later and was introduced to Master Q as he was to be called. How are we to move about here with you sensei? Micah asked as they ate breakfast. When we come back I should be able to turn invisible. It's just taking me time to reconnect to the Bunla. Q said as he watched the pair of boys demolish a meal that should have fed a dozen people. Q swore he would explain about Zot Nin and Bunla once they crossed to the Underverse as he called it. And what is the Underverse? Micah asked. It is a world parallel with this one where demons and humans live side by side. It is a step down from heaven and hell the rumors go. Not even the demon lords such as I know for certain as we all fear to cross that barrier. Q explained as he drifted over the ground. The shade seemed more solid than the first day, but you could still see through him. This is as solid as I can get. But my control of the Bunla has improved where I can do this. Q said and Micah felt a light smack across the back of his head. I can show you much. You both need to not judge by appearances. Look at me. You judged me by my lack of solidity, and yet I can toss you around. For my ally is the Vunla, and a powerful ally it is. The week passed quickly after that. Naruto and Micah packed and returned the swords to Master Kwai. Won't you need them? He asked, looking at Kyuubi. No, once they have gotten to a point in their training they will be making their own blades. And if they need swords in Underverse, trust me when I say that the Underverse will provide. Quote, so it was that they stood outside the Shaolin Temple as the sun was setting. 2 runes had been carved into the dirt and Master Kwai was chanting. An orb hovered in the air before him, it pulsed with power and glowed an eerie red with sparks of green. Remember when we reach the other side, don't wander off. Underverse is different and innocent-looking things can be fiends in disguise. Q warned them. What do you mean fiends? Micah asked. Hey. Well, humans and demons live in relative peace. But there are fiends or monsters that are like wild animals, and they attack the unwary or unprepared. Q said. Naruto huffed. And we're just leaving our swords here. Why, Q-sama? Naruto asked. He really hated using the respectful tones to anyone, but Q said that it could cause trouble on the other side if he didn't. Naruto would have argued the point, but Micah said Master Q knew the Underverse, they needed to trust him. Master Kwai finished chanting and his hands flashed through over 200 hand signs before he touched the orb hovering in front of him. A crackle of energy and the 2 boys and Shade watched as a white bolt of lightning laced out and struck the first rune on the ground, and then a bolt leapt from that rune to the other one. The orb moved to hover in the air between them and it formed a pyramid-shaped rift that seemed to shimmer like water in the air. Think similar to the Stargate portal. Q went and looked over his shoulder. See you on the other side, boys. He hovered there a moment and passed on to the other side. Micah went next. He took a deep breath and stepped in. The portal rippled with his passing and settled back to normal in seconds. Naruto looked at Master Kwai who was sitting with his eyes closed. Goodbye Kwai Ojiazan, Naruto said and stepped into the portal. It pulsed and then winked shut. The orb lowered to the ground and the runes faded from the dirt in which they'd been carved. Master Kwai sat still, his eyes closed. Good journey Naruto-san. May fate and destiny be kinder to you in the future. And with that, Master Kwai Chong Kane, Shaolin monk and sorcerer supreme, faded away, his spirit finally finding peace. Konoha. Hinata sat atop the Hokage monument. Her white eyes looking down upon the village she'd called home since birth. In the past 17 months she'd changed and grown. Her confidence since becoming host for the spirit of vengeance. She'd learned its name was Jakaila and it had many lessons to teach her. Jakaila had taught her to be sure of herself, how to carry herself. Jakaila told her that it was neither male nor female, it just was. Hinata was the 12th host since its creation. Hinata spent days in the memories of the spirit's previous host, Kushina Uzumaki Kazama Namikaze. She'd learned that Kushina was Naruto's mother, that they'd used the Kazama name as a misdirection to hide that Minato was her husband, the famed Yellow Flash of Konoha, the Yondaime Hokage. She'd learned that the 4th would live with Kushina under a elaborate disguise jutsu that was attacked to a necklace. Hinata cried in joy when Kushina found out she was pregnant, the look on Minato's face when she told him he was going to be a father. Hinata felt her fear when the Kyuubi was announced attacking Leaf Nins. Kushina going into labor while trying to evacuate civilians. She remembered Kushina going into labor and the pain. Hinata saw Naruto for the first time as he took his first breath in the world, and a nurse taking him awa. Why? She saw Danzo enter the hospital room and inject Kushina with a poison while a masked root operative held her down. She was too weak to fight after giving birth, and Jakaila howled in fury as his host was killed by someone they'd considered ally. Hinata hated Danzo with each passing moment. She'd seen the reports on Lady Tsunade's desk saying he'd joined up with Orochimaru in the Sound Village. Hinata thought of going and enacting vengeance, but she knew that while she might be a lot stronger, her massacre of the Hyuga clan showed that she wasn't ready for an all-out assault on Otogakure. Soon. The more past memories I awaken, the stronger we become. Hinata thought. Stronger still we will become. Your willpower is increasing daily, Hina-chan. Jakaila said in her mind. Hinata thought about the memories she'd seen in Kakashi's aura. She was sickened with how the former Jonin acted towards Naruto, and she was scared what she would find behind the mental block. She'd uncovered it in layers. When he was an Anbu, he allowed villagers to harm Naruto, and would only jump in if another Anbu was closing in, making it seem like he was doing his job. Hinata thought. The day she'd seen that memory, she'd unleashed Pakun on Kakashi. The Nin dogs had voided the summoning contract with him. Hinata looked at the scroll on her hip pouch. She'd gained that contract fair and square. Anyo, and Tsunade asked me how I keep coming up with the slugs and toads. Hinata thought with a slight smile. And to think she doesn't know about the wolves and the monkeys. Jakaila thought back. The other two contracts Hinata liberated from the council's vault. They stole the monkey contract after the third was murdered. When Konohamaru is older, I will pit onto him. Hinata thought. And the wolf and dog contracts. I think I will offer the wolf contract to Kiba's sister, Hana. I am surprised the council had that one hidden away. It is cause they didn't want the Inuzukas to have more power. They feared them as they were nearly as powerful as the prized Uchiha clan. Speaking of that clan, the Falcon contract, Hinata paused. The scroll is in possession of the rogue. The one you call Itachi. Hinata paused. Then Anyo, Jakaila-sama, what we learned about Itachi all those months ago. I know he did what he did to save Naruto, but I learned from the reports on Lady Tsunade's desk that he is now part of that organization Akatsuki that wants to harm him. I do not know what to think about his actions. Sigh, I am not sure either, Hina-chan. From the aura I read on Hataki, the Toad Pervert, and the Hokage, Itachi Uchiha was looking for Naruto, but he didn't do nothing to harm him in their encounter other than ask him to go with them. We will need to read his aura to be sure of his intentions. Hinata sighed. Damn, she muttered aloud. And right now Lady Tsunade has forbidden us from leaving Konoha. I can understand as I'm still undergoing training with her and I am a genin. With power equal to a Sannin right now. But you don't have the control yet. And with each passing day you are getting better. Soon there will be little difference between us. I am you are me, and in the end we are vengeance. Hinata smiled as she watched several fireflies rise up in the Gra night began to fall. She wasn't bothered that she'd sat here nearly all day speaking with the spirit. She would do that for days on end. Do you wish to speak with your cousin and sister? Jakaila asked. Not really. Why? Hinata thought. Because they are behind you, and I've distracted you long enough. Speak with them, child. They don't hate you, and they mean you no harm. Neji is radiating concern for you and your sister as a cornucopia of emotions, but none of them are fear or hatred, the spirit said and fell silent in the back of her mind. Hello Neji-sama, Lady Hyuga. Hinata said, not turning around, but she could feel both flinch at her form of address. Lady Hinata, Neji said formally. 2 years ago this would have been said with venom and hate. Now it was filled with sadness and regret. You have been avoiding everyone again. He accused her. Hinata shrugged a shoulder. Tired of being looked at and people wondering if I'm going to eat their souls. She said, her voice still soft and tired sounding. Nay-san, you wouldn't do that. Hanabi spoke up. You care too much. Hinata looked over her shoulder at her sister and sighed. You used to call that weakness, Lady Hyuga. Hinata said. Hanabi took a step towards her. Hinata, Nay-san, please, don't distance yourself. I miss you. I killed your father and most of the clan. Hinata said. You killed traitors and the man who murdered mother. Hanabi said. I was blinded by what Hiashi told me since I could remember. But I remember you. No matter what I said or did to you, you cared. I want my sister back. Hinata sighed. Hinata Hyuga died 17 months ago. I am Hinata Jakaila. No. You are my sister. I don't care if you are in a symbiotic relationship with a vengeance spirit, or you marry that boy. You like. I just want my Nay-san back. Hanabi was standing behind the sitting Hinata now and the older girl could hear tears in her voice. What of the survivors? How do they feel? Hinata asked. Neji crouched and put a hand on her shoulder. The members of the branch family see you as their saving grace. Now there are no more main or branch Hyuga, there is just one big Hyuga clan. You saved us from the caged bird, and freed us all to make choices. Quote, the members of the main branch you spared showed them that you can be vengeful and merciful at the same time. Hanabi said. Alundra by the way gave birth to a set of twins, a boy and a girl. Hinata looked over her shoulder at Hanabi. She asked me to request you stop by and visit. If you hadn't destroyed the elders and those that betrayed Konoha, one of them would be cursed with the caged bird seal, and the other would have been moved into learning guard duty for me. Quote. Hinata sighed. When I fought Hiashi, I was so mad at what I read in his aura. It stank of corruption, and when I searched his mind, I was disgusted by what I saw. He wasn't a man that we would ever call father. He was corrupted by power long before he married Mother. He was a loveless monster that she tried to make into a man, but it cost her life and nearly ours in the end. Hinata. Neji said, drawing her attention. Ten asked me to remind you that you are invited to our home. Remember, no alcohol, as Lee tends to become unmanageable and I do not want my first night in our new apartment to be amid debris. Hinata smiled. So the three of you have figured it out? She asked, and Neji blushed a bit. Hanabi outright laughed at her older cousin. I do not think those were the fires of youth your sensei was talking about, Neji Onisan. She said teasingly. Brat. He muttered. I can't explain it really. He sighed. I blame Uzumaki. It was after he defeated me in the Chunin exams, but before that disaster that became the Uchiha retrieval. Quote. Hinata turned to listen, giving him her full attention. The Konoha 10 knew that the best way to get her attention was to talk about Naruto and what he meant to each of them. I was on patrol with 10. It was shortly after Uzumaki brought Lady Tsunade back. He was at one of the abandoned training grounds outside the walls. We came upon him fighting with his clones. There were over 100 of them and he was pure movement. His fighting style was rough and I couldn't believe that this was the genin that beat me. Neji admitted. But the more we watched him, we saw there was a simple grace to his movements. Neji smirked. Lee of course would have yelled out about his passion and such. But it was 10 who called out to him. Quote. Neji smiled at the memory. She got his attention just as one of his clones pulled this weird combo that looked like a whip crack where they swung another around and it kicked him into the stream. Neji chuckled. 10 was mortified thinking she had caused him to be hurt, and dove in after him. I watched as the clones kept fighting as if this was a common occurrence, and one of them was cheeky. What? Hinata asked, surprised. His clones can act independently from him. Surprised me, I thought they were all controlled by him, but, Neji shrugged. It asked me if I was going to help my girlfriend get the boss out of the drink, and then it got hit and poofed away. Neji looked out over Konoha. Then another one asked how my boyfriend was doing in the hospital. I froze for a moment and turned to demand what it meant. Neji chuckled. I was drawn into a spar and answering insane questions, my attention fully away from the river. I answered that neither 10 nor Lee were associated with me like that. Then one clone asked me why not. I said it would be looked down by the elders, and the clone laughed and said so. Neji smiled at that memory and both sisters liked the fact he was more relaxed now. It said that it knew that Lee liked me like that as Naruto had spent a lot of time visiting, Bushy Brow, as Naruto called Lee. It then asked me why not 10 and I told it why she wouldn't like a marked man like me. I was servant of the Hyuga main house. I would marry who they told me to. Hanabi looked sad and Hinata knew that would have been true. Then the clone said, what would I do if I could go where my heart wanted? I laughed at it and said I'd be torn in two, because ever since I first met Lee and 10 I've worn a mask of indifference. Why would they want a cold-hearted bastard like me who tormented his own cousin because he thought she was weak, when in fact I was the weak one? Quote. Neji turned and looked at Hinata. You are a million times stronger than I ever was. You wanted Naruto and you fought to be yourself, not the flesh golem Hiashi was trying to make you. Hinata put a hand on his shoulder. I never blamed you, Neji. I always thought of you as my brother. She said. Neji gave her a soft, sad smile. I blame myself. All those years wasted when I could have known you and been not only a friend, but your brother. Quote. Hanabi looked at the pair and knew she wanted her sister back. So, what did you answer the Uzumaki clone? She asked. I didn't. 10 wrapped me in a hug from behind and held me. She told me she saw through my mask long ago. Her and Lee were waiting for me to come around my own way. Neji chuckled. I was shocked that 10 and Lee were already in a relationship and they were waiting for me. Uzu. Naruto told me to talk with Lee. He said I would be happy, and he would do all he could to make it happen. Neji sighed. I did talk a lot with Lee and Tenten. Then that damned Uchiha ran off. Neji looked over the village. Sometimes I wonder if Naruto had been treated properly, would he have made the impacts he did on people? He changed me, and I like who I'm becoming. I want him here for the day when Tenten marries Lee and I. Hinata smiled. He will be. I can feel it, she said, putting a hand over her heart. Naruto-kun will come back. Jaka alone feels that Naruto needs this journey to grow. We all do, she said, looking back over the village. You know, Naruto always came up here to think, and I like the view myself. It is a peaceful place to think. Quote. Hanabi put a hand on Hinata's shoulder. Will you please come to the new compound? I want to know you better now that Hiyashi's manipulations are being cleared away. I will visit, but I cannot be a Hyuga. That path closed to me the day I made the pact with Jaka alone. Someday I might join another family. Namikaze. Neji coughed the name and Hinata glared at him. If Naruto wishes it. I have watched him for a very long time. You cannot force Naruto to do things he does not want. I hope that one day I can be what he wants and needs, but I need to grow first. At the academy he saw me as this weird stuttering girl. As Genin he saw me as a shy stuttering fellow nin that he cheered on. Quote. Neji laughed. Hinata. He took the blood you coughed up on the arena floor and swore on it to beat me. He didn't do that for the Haruno. And yes, he saved her from Gaara, but he didn't boast or brag about it. I heard Hatake gave the credit to the Uchiha who didn't do anything during the fight. Hinata's eyes narrowed and her mind found the memory. I think I have a certain genin to train with tomorrow. Quote. That's downright scary when you switch voices like that. Neji said with a smile. But you're still our Hinata. How about dinner? Hanabi asked. Ramen. Hinata suggested and both Hyuga looked at her. It's tasty and I see why Naruto-kun likes it. Besides Tyuki and Ayame are warm and friendly. Ichiraku ramen it is then. Neji said. I heard he refuses service to those who have wronged Naruto. Hi. Tsunade gives him compensation for Naruto not being there and eating. I know her and Shizune eat lunch there every other day. Hinata confessed. Choji, Shikamaru and Kiba eat there daily now. Neji said. It's become an unofficial hangout for the Konoha rookies. Neji remembered Lee's attempt to beat Naruto's record the first time there. Poor Lee had been in the hospital for a couple days after that attempt. Some of my classmates eat there as well. Hanabi said. Hinata paused and then remembered Hanabi's fellow classmates. Hanabi, do you know Konohamaru, Udon and Moegi? Hanabi paused hearing Hinata call her by her name again, then her brain restarted. Yes. He's changed a bit over the past year and a half. She said. I've never seen someone become so focused before. Hinata sighed. He sees Naruto as an older brother. His exile hit him hard. Hanabi nodded, remembering Konohamaru missing a week of classes before Iruka-sensei had dragged him back. He wore a bright orange jacket and those ugly goggles, but he was more serious now. Moegi and Udon followed his examples and she'd seen him interact with other adults. He was respectful to some, but others he outright cursed and they usually ended up pranked a day later. Nothing led back to the young Sarutobi, but he would share a look with Iruka-sensei who would nod and continue lessons. No patrols have seen him, and none of our allies have either. It's like he vanished off the face of the earth. Hinata said. Jiraiya-san says his spy network hasn't found a trace, and both Oto and Akatsuki are at a loss as well. Rummaging the Hokage's files, Neji teased. Nope. As her apprentice I get to file them all properly, of course I just happen to read them first, especially for news about Naruto related in any shape or form. The trio continued to walk. They talked about light things, Hanabi telling Hinata she could have clan leader back. There was just too much paperwork. Not only do I have lessons and work from school, but I also have lessons and paperwork from Lee Su-san and Cho-san. They both are relentless in their lessons. Hinata laughed. Etiquette lessons. Wait till they start on the marital lessons. How a proper wife should act in private, in public. What a clan leader should say and what you shouldn't. Hinata laughed. I do not miss those lessons. Neji shuddered. I remember those. While you were being taught that, I was being taught how to be your bodyguard, and let me tell you, Ken-sama was a drill sergeant in how one was to move around the protectorate. Quote. The three reached Ichiraku Ramen and their banter continued on past lesson, unaware that soon danger would come knocking. Across town in the hospital, a pair of eyes opened for the first time in nearly 17 months. Dobi. A voice croaked from disuse. Underverse. City of Solit anew. The majestic city was the pearl of the Underverse. It was ruled over by the elemental empress, and peace was held in the vast sections of the city. The upper city was above ground and surrounded by the walls. Lowtown and the down zone were sights that needed to be seen. Beyond the walls lay to the east the Ester Sands, a vast desert. To the west was the Spider Swamp, home to arachnids of humongous size. Actually, they were of all shapes, sizes, and colors, but the Oz version helped keep tourists out, hopefully. To the north was the lake with no Womanizen Island with the Black Tower at its center. And to the south was the valley of mist that led to the frozen tundra. Above Solit Anyo was the floating city of Ariel. The only way to reach it was either by flying on an airship, or using the portals that were under guard in the gate rooms scattered around Solit anew. This was all explained to Naruto and Mika after they'd made their way across the Ester Sands, only encountering minor fiends in demonic wolves with numerous eyes, and one giant sandworm, but a Rasengan from Naruto destroyed that while Mika and his wind element sliced it to pieces. Q just floated along, a happy look on his face. What are you grinning about, Master Q? Naruto asked. Remember to add the proper address at the last moment. Happy to be home is all, Kit. Q said. The shade paused and looked out over the vast desert. Shukaku used to love playing here. She would create sandstorms miles in all directions that could rip the flesh from a man in seconds. Shukaku. Wait. Naruto stopped walking. You mean the demon Gaara has in him as female? Yup. Q answered with a chuckle. Add in the berserker seal his father put on him and the insane monk sealed with him. I'm amazed the kid is coherent. Shukaku hated sharing, and during that time of the month she would kill anyone that talked to her, or even looked at her sideways. Q said with a chuckle. When we get back, do you think we could help them? Naruto asked. I think so, yes. The seal will be no problem, I think, but you and Mika for good measure will be working with a seal master once I'm sure your training is underway properly. Q answered after a moment's thought. Master? Mika asked, getting the shade's attention. Yes. I feel weird. Mika said, looking at the shade. My wind element is screaming at me. It feels stronger, wilder, more, shrugs, more. Q sighed and looked around. Let's take a rest against that rock formation. It's out of the sun and gives us ample protection should a sandstorm come up. Once the two boys were seated, Q sat himself as well. There is a stronger connection to all things here in the Underverse. You both will find your chakra is more potent here, and when I begin to teach you how to use Vunla, that will be rich and heady. When we return to your dimension, you both will be a lot stronger than when you left. A lot stronger, Q said, looking both boys in the eyes as he said this. So are you going to explain what Vunla is now, and about Zates? Naruto asked. I might as well, Q said with a nod of his head. Vunla is a living energy force that surrounds us, binds us. It's a part of all things. You, me, the sand we're sitting on, the chakra in your bodies. With Vunla you can do things that you once could only possibly imagine. Quote. Oh yeah, I can imagine quite a bit. Naruto said with a smirk, and Mika chuckled. Baka Baiti. Q muttered. Kami is testing me with you. I know she's laughing at me. I can feel it. The Fox Lord said under his breath. Bitch is a sore loser at cards. So, Vunla is a source of power, of life. What is it to a Zot? Mika asked. Zot are guardians, protectors. Think of them as enforcers of love and peace. Q chuckled at that last one, getting weird looks from his two apprentices. Sorry, just remembered a crazy blonde I knew a millennia or two ago who would spout off about fighting for love and peace. Crazy as a coon, but had a heart as big as a moon. Q watched as the two boys ate ration bars and sipped their water. I will teach you their arts and show you how to manipulate Vunla. With that you can level mountains, manipulate matter. You will be able to use Vunla to enhance your body, manipulate the weak-minded. Snort. Well, that's nearly all of Konoha. Mika muttered, and Naruto sighed. I hate to agree, but the more you think about it, Quaint. Hugh muttered at his charge's playful nature. I'm putting the power of the universe in the hands of a couple of prank masters from hell. Quote. Oi, we aren't that bad, Naruto said. Actually, we are. We did put neon pink dye in Master Kwai's shampoo. Not to mention that blue woad we hit him with. He was reading that book, when he was supposed to train us. Naruto said. I'm not defending him, I'm just saying we do have a rather playful nature. Micah said. You two would have made great kitsunes. Hugh said, and they both looked at him. I said that out loud, did I? Quote. Both boys nodded. Right then. Hugh looked at them. Know that your physical training will continue here. But we'll work on your lessons as well. Bring it on, you crazy fox. We're not afraid, Naruto said, looking at the shade. Hugh chuckled darkly. Oh, you will be Kit. You will be Otogakur. Orochimaru looked at the reports. Your spy says Sasuke has awoken. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. He woke late yesterday. He's been placed in a chakra nullifying cell beneath the tower. Quote. Orochimaru sneered. Does that fat-chested overpriced hooker think she can keep me from what I want? Kabuto, send for Danzo and his boy, Sai was it. I have a mission for them and their root force. I think it's time they prove their loyalty to Oto. Quote. At once, Lord Orochimaru. The glasses-wearing Med Nin says as he leaves the room. Kukukuku. Soon, Sasuke, you will be where you belong. The snake-like eyes looked at another report. I left you with Tsunade till you regained consciousness. Now that has happened, you will become mine. Anyone passing the chamber would have shivered at the chuckling they heard from beyond the closed doors. Konoha. Maida Guy was doing his morning workout. In the 17 months since the exile of Naruto, Guy had become changed. He no longer yelled about the flames of youth. He still wore the green outfit and orange legwarmers and his Jonin vest proudly. His team worked without him more now that he led patrols outside the village while they performed D and C ranked missions. He joined them for B and A ranked missions that popped up. Guy had been shocked when he learned of his team's bonding. But he smiled and told them he was happy they had found what made them happy. More than once he'd protected them from other shinobi who judged the young trio for their choices of being a true trio in every way. He learned that Naruto had helped them come together. Guy increased his pace while his mind thought of his team. Lee had calmed a lot being with Neji and Tenten. There was still a competitive edge in their sparring, but Guy was happy to see it brought them together even more. Tenten now was learning taijutsu more. Lee and Neji had convinced her, reminding her of her weakness during the Chunin exam. The pair worked with her, giving her a close-range style where she started using a pair of Pantera claws she'd strapped to her forearms. Try claws like Wolverine. Tenten was now deadly at both long and short range. Neji teaching her a style of fighting with help from the Inuzuka boy, Kiba. Neji. Guy paused in his workout. Of his 3 students, he was the most changed. He was more relaxed and smiled more around his friends and around his lovers. He would still put up the cold indifferent mask around many, but around the Konoha 10 and their senseis he was a changed man. Guy had been surprised when he'd shown up to practice with Kiba and explained, Tenten's in close combat training would be beneficial if she learned the basics of the Inuzuka style and had made a deal with Kiba. Guy was proud of his team. He admitted he was shamed to hear how Kakashi, his longtime friend and rival, had treated Naruto and favored the Uchiha and allowed the Haruno girl to constantly berate and pummel Naruto with no words from him to defend the blonde. If we ever find you, Naruto, I will apologize for not helping you, as you helped my team. I will do all I can to repay the kindness you have done them. You helped Lee at his lowest point, you opened Neji's heart to his teammates and family. You even helped Tenten. Guy had been shocked to learn that Naruto was responsible for keeping Tenten's weapon shop open. The blonde would buy large quantities of kunai, shuriken and exploding tags. Guy and his team learned that Tenten had nearly lost her weapons shop after Naruto's exile, but now the Konoha 10 shopped there exclusively for weapons, as did most of the older Jonin now. The weapons shop near the Hokage's tower had gone out of business after the previous owner came down with a case of being comatose after Hinata hit him with her penance stare after she learned how he treat Naruto and sold him defective equipment hoping that it would get him killed. Guy heard that the new wing of the hospital was up to 37 people suffering the effects of the penance stare, and Inoichi Yamanaka was still working on getting the Haruno girl out of hers. Ino had informed the Konoha 10 and their senseis that Sakura was currently up to age 5. She said her father was having to piece the girl's life together and it was slow going. Guy had seen the older Yamanaka male at the bar shivering and swearing that teenage girls were scary with their though. Oots. Guy's lapse took him past the Hokage monument and he looked up seeing Hinata sitting there and he was surprised to see Hanabi there. The pair looked to be relaxed and cordial around one another. Guy passed a training ground next and was surprised to see Kakashi there working out. He slowed down and watched the former Jonin turn Genin going through a series of punches and kicks. Kakashi stopped and swore. Damn it to hell. What is the trouble, Kakashi? Guy asked, watching the former Jonin getting frustrated. Who, Guy. He said in return. What are you doing here? My morning lapse. What are you doing, Kakashi? I've never seen you out and about this early in the day unless forced, and then it's under protest. Kakashi sighed. You ever wish you could go back and do your life over? The more memories of mine that Hinata unlocks, the more I wish she would just end it all. Quote. What? Why is that, Kakashi? Guy asked in concern. His former rival looked so defeated. Over the last 17 months I've seen how I treated Naruto since becoming his instructor and I find myself thinking Minato-sensei would be furious with me. It shouldn't have mattered if he was his son, or some boy off the street. I should have treated them all equally. But I allowed my pride in being chosen by the council to train the last Uchiha blind me. With each passing day Hinata is closer and closer to unlocking the mental blocks that were put there after I left Anbu, and I'm afraid what she will see. Will one more memory be my last? Will I die like Hiyashi on my knees in the street, my brains splattered in the dirt? Kakashi looked up to the sky. I was furious when she took my Sharingan away from me with that Juken strike. I'd allowed it to define me. I allowed myself to become lazy and overconfident in abilities I stole. Quote. Kakashi sighed. 1,000 jutsus I'd stolen, and Hinata has them all in her head now. She took the memories with that stare of hers. She didn't leave me like Sakura, but she left me a genin. I have my skills, but I no longer have what I stole. Quote. And that makes me liberated. Kakashi said, looking at Guy. I pray that whatever memories Hinata unlocks, I pray to Kami she allows me to apologize to Naruto for all the wrongs I've done him before she kills me, or locks me in my mind. Quote. Guy looked at him. You've changed, Kakashi. For the better. Kakashi laughed. It took me 17 months to see this guy. Sleepless nights, beatings at Hinata's hands as she opened my memories of the beatings I'd watched Naruto get while being his sensei. Quote. Kakashi sighed. I'm afraid, Guy. The mental blocks of what I did as an Anbu, did I do something to Naruto that will push her into taking my life? Do I deserve a second chance? Hell, this would be my third. I wasted my second chance that Rin and Obito gave me all those years ago. Guy put a hand on his former rival's shoulder. We can only deal with one day at a time, Kakashi. Talk with Hinata. Tell her you repent. Tell her you'll accept whatever punishment she sees fit. Tell her that before she administers it to allow you to at least apologize to Naruto. Seek forgiveness, Kakashi. Forgiveness? No, I don't deserve that. I just need to make things right. The Uchiha woke yesterday, Hanabi said while sitting next to Hinata atop the Hokage monument. I know, Hinata said. Right now Lady Tsunade has him in a chakra nullifying cell under the tower awaiting his trial. I am ordered to leave him be till then. Hinata said. How? How does Jakaila feel about that? Hanabi asked. She was still hesitant about the spirit that shared her sister's body. Jakaila isn't happy with it, but we agreed to see what the new council will do at his trial tomorrow. Quote. Hanabi smiled. You going to intimidate them? Hanabi, I let them choose. Free will and all that Kami gave us mortals. I just will enforce my will if the outcome isn't as it should be. Hanabi sighed. I can't believe they are even wasting time with a trial for the Uchiha. He left the village of his own free will, and to join up with an Esclanuk Nin. Anyone else would have been executed for treason. If he'd just run away he would be doing a prison sentence, but his attempts to join Orochimaru and his attack of a Leaf Nin have moved it to execution, but you are right. Anyone other than the Uchiha and the sentence would have been carried out the moment he was brought back. Quote. I see why you hate more and more of the villagers as the days Ni-chan. Hanabi said sadly. I heard some of them discussing your Naruto, They blame him for what you've done. Many of them think he's bewitched you. Quote. Hinata sighed. Blind fools. She looked at Hanabi. They make it harder and harder to keep Jakaila from enacting his vengeance. It doesn't help that the host prior to me was Naruto-kun's mother, and my own emotions make it hard to keep from attacking them. Quote. Hanabi put a hand on her shoulder. He will come back. Hinata half sobbed and chuckled. Why should he? He was exiled. He thinks the woman he saw as an aunt or mother figure signed his exile. The previous council told him they would have him executed should he return. He doesn't know I care. I was too much of a coward to tell him, and now. Hanabi's slap shocked Hinata. Why are you doubting now? What happened to the Hinata who's been a force of nature around Konoha these last 17 months? Quote. Hinata cradled her stinging cheek. I've seen the aura of many in the village. They are happy Naruto-kun is gone. There aren't many that want him back. The Konoha 10, Konohamaru, the Jonin senseis, a few Chunin, Anbu, Ichiraku's Tuki and Ayame, Jiraiya, Shizune and Lady Tsunade are about it. I want him back, Hanabi said, and Hinata looked at her in surprise. I want him back because it would make you happy. Everything I've heard or have learned about Uzumaki, I want him back because he is special to you, Hinata Ne-chan. Because of him Neji Onisan is happy. Because of him you found courage to stand up to Hiashi and freed the Hyuga family from their own blindness. Hanabi looked out over Konoha. I want him back, because he is special to Konohamaru-kun. I miss seeing him laugh and smile. Since Uzumaki's exile, Iruka-sensei and Konohamaru-kun no longer smile or laugh. They pull pranks on those that insult Naruto Uzumaki, but they do not laugh at them. Hanabi looked at Hinata. You have changed for him, and I think should he return, you will blossom even more. I want to see my older sister shine. I want to see you truly smile, Hinata Ne-chan. Your Uzumaki can do that, then I will use whatever means I have as the new leader of the Hyugas to make it happen. Hanabi. He will come back, Hinata Ne-chan. Even if I have to order every member of the family to hunt him down and drag him back here to lay at your feet. He makes you Hinata. Hanabi rose. And I like seeing my older sister happy. Hanabi turned and walked away, leaving Hinata to sit stunned, and to ponder what she would do. All rise. A Chunin called out. The viewing seats were filled to the bursting point as all of Konoha had turned out to witness the trial of Sasuke Uchiha. The council filed in and Tsunade took her seat wearing full Hokage robes and that ridiculous hat she hated. Anbu were stationed around the chamber and Tsunade saw the Konoha 10 in the viewing seats. Her eyes looked for Hinata, but couldn't find her, which put her on edge. Be seated. The Chunin called out. Tsunade sighed. Bring in the accused. She wanted to say the condemned because that's what the Uchiha was, but the council had fought tooth and nail to give him a trial, and they insisted that he was innocent until proven guilty. Proven guilty. The little shit stain ran off to join Orochimaru and nearly killed a team sent to bring him back. Tsunade thought as the Uchiha was brought in. He had the chakra repressing cuffs on his wrists and a pair of Anbu on either side of him with one behind, hand on a sword. She saw someone had given him fresh clothes and he looked like he was here for an interview. Thrice damned fools. I told them no one was to see him. Mental note, find out who was guarding him last night and this morning and have them demoted to genin doing D-ranked missions for life. Tsunade thought. Of course, as smug as the new council, they all think that hell will freeze over before they get blamed for anything. The Uchiha was placed in a seat in the middle of the chamber and his chakra cuffs were chained to the arms of the chair. Sasuke Uchiha, former genin of Konoha, you are accused. Objection. All eyes turned to see a man in a black kimono and carrying a scroll walk up. He had long black hair and Tsunade sighed. Lawyers. Fiends of the highest order. Who are you? Kaharu, the third's former teammate, demanded. Wechita Mano, attorney for the defense. The lawyer said, I am here to have these ridiculous charges against my client dropped, and his status cleared. Accusing him of trumped-up charges. Ano-san, who summoned you here this day? Tsunade asked. I did, Tsunade. The Godime Hokage turned and fixed a level glare upon the Haruno. Why? Because this is a mockery. Sasuke Uchiha was under duress and it was the killing intent flashed across the chamber and Haruno fell silent as another figure stepped into the middle of the chamber. Hinata was wearing black pants, a black crop top under a mesh shirt. She wore spiked bracers and her gloves had spikes on the knuckles. Her skin was white as snow, her hair and eyes black as night, the veins around her eyes showing she had the Byakugan activated. The only mockery here is this farce of you trying to allow this trash to escape justice. The cold voice of Hinata sending chills around the chamber. Tell me, Haruno, you doing this because you actually believe the swill coming out of your mouth, or is it because you hope to impress the Tem here enough that he would consent to marry your gutter shill you call a daughter? Quote, you go too far, demon whore. The red-haired male yelled. I don't go far enough. And here I thought Sakura got her volume from her mother. Learn something new every day. Hinata Vengeance stopped several feet away from Sasuke and eyed the nervous Anbu. You let the snake of a lawyer near the Uchiha, but not the apprentice of the Hokage. Tsunade looked at the lawyer the second Hinata mentioned the word snake. Does she see something with her Byakugan? The fifth Hokage wondered. It matters not. This trial is a farce. One set up by the weak-willed council members who believe that the sun shines out of the Uchiha's ass. Exclamations are heard and Tsunade is fighting hard to keep herself from laughing at the gathered council, while the people in the gallery outright chuckle and laugh. I object. The lawyer said. Overruled. Hinata Vengeance said, not even looking at the man. As I was saying, this trial is a farce. If any other member of the Konohagakure ninja forces had left like the Uchiha, they would have been imprisoned for Ds. RTION, and for attempting to join an SCL Nuke Nin, would have been immediate execution. Tsunade nodded and shot the council a look. They had continued to override her on the issue of the Uchiha. She blocked their attempts to give him a pardon. Hinata speaks the truth, Sume Inazaka said from her seat. The clan heads were here as well and she was looking at the new civilian council with disdain. Hanabi Hyuga was next to her and she was staring at the council as well. The Haruno stood. We all know that Sasuke was being controlled by the curse mark. Why Jiraiya of the Sannin hasn't removed it yet makes this council wonder if this is the Godime's ploy to pave the way for her pet demons. Quote, shouting filled the chamber and Tsunade narrowed her eyes. She saw the lawyer speaking with the Uchiha and her eyes narrowed. Anbu, move that man back. She ordered and two of them went to do so. I have a right to speak with my client. No, said stepping back before either Anbu reached him. Speak with him all you wish, at a distance and no physical contact. Ibiki Morino said stepping forward with Anko Mitarashi. The special Jonin were glaring at the attorney and Anko had a kunai in her left hand. Tsunade focused back on the rest of the room. There will be order, or I will have the chamber cleared. People muttered lowly as they settled down. The Konoha 10 were looking none too happy with the civilian council. Are they really this stupid? Ino asked in disbelief. No, they just are blinded by the past deeds of a once great clan. Shikamaru said from where he was sitting next to Choji. Akamura got a whiff of that lawyer, he said he smells funny. Kiba said from where he was holding Akamaru in his jacket. He does look rather slimy, even for an attorney. Asuma said from his seat behind the genin. Shush. This isn't over, Shikamaru said looking on. His father in his council seat had given him a sign to pay attention. Enough. Tsunade roared, slamming her hand on the booth before her, shattering it. Lady Hokage. The lawyer said, having her focus on him. She glared at him, not liking this man at all. If you would please allow Sasuke-kun here a chance to defend himself, I'm certain what he has to say will be most enlightening. Quote, Tsunade was going to refuse outright, but he council were agreeing to it. She looked at the clan leaders who shook their heads. This is payback for making them actually work. She thought. Make it brief. She ground out between her clenched teeth. She was not liking this with each passing moment, and it felt off. Oh, it will be Tsunade. Ano said, giving her a bow. It was his tone. The way he'd said her name. Anbu, secure the prisoner. She yelled while getting to her feet. Ano kicked one of the Anbu aside and there was an explosion from the floor. As the smoke cleared, Hinata was fighting 6 Odo nins. Tsunade cursed seeing Danzo with a bright silver arm emerge from the hole in the floor backed by his root squad. Shizune, Iruka, evacuate the civilians. Tsunade yelled and she ducked a hail of shuriken from a strange Odo nin that's arm was replaced by something metallic with a slit in the palm. She watched as it launched shuriken rapidly at Konoha nin that were coming into the fight while trying to get around the panicking civilians. Tsunade swore and drew her hand back, sent a shockwave through the ground with a punch, hoping to distract the sound ninja from attacking the crowd. Damn Orochimaru. I should have thought he wouldn't let the Uchiha go. She thought as she struck a sound nin hard enough to put him through a wall. Tsunade saw the Konoha 10 were fighting around Hinata. She nodded, glad to see they were fighting like a well-oiled machine. Her gaze found Danzo picking up an unconscious Uchiha and dropping back into the hole in the ground. Anko. She yelled, getting the special Jonin's attention. Gather everyone, we need to drive them back, and take out as many of them as possible. Before the snake Jonin could respond, two black cobras the size of trees came out of the hole in the ground, their hoods opened and their fangs dripping. Damn it! Tsunade cursed and her hands flew through the motions, Kuchio's no jutsu. A blast of smoke and two slugs appeared the size of two large bears. Stall them, she ordered, not giving them a chance to greet her. She spun and her fist connected with a sound ninja's chest and she felt the man's ribs shatter as he slammed into the seating area and didn't rise. She turned and saw that Orochimaru was standing by the hole now with his personal assistant Kabuto. He held up the shed skin from the lawyer's face he'd been wearing and after twiddling his fingers at her he dropped back into the hole. Sonova, he has new arms. Damn it to hell. Tsunade and the others were pushing the raiding nin back and as each one fell they got closer to the hole that had been said to tunnel into Konoha. Tsunade and Hinata reached the hole only to jump back as it was suddenly filled with molten rock and sealed. Damn it. Both women cursed. They turned and saw that the sound nin were dead and the two cobras vanished in puffs of smoke as the slugs hit them with acid. They got away. She ched her fist tightly. That damn snake in the grass. Tsunade looked around. Report. She barked. 10 wounded, 4 dead, and they took the Uchiha. Uruka said, glaring at the now sealed hole. They have an earth user. Ibiki said, squatting next to the cooling rock. Hinata was glaring at it and then turned. Don't even think about it, Hinata. Tsunade said, catching her at the doorway. They took the Uchiha. After everything that Naruto went through and was exiled for, Orochimaru still got his toy, and Naruto is still gone. This is too troublesome, but did anyone notice several members of the council were ducking before the explosion? Shikamaru asked. The growl from Hinata sent chills down those still standing's backs and in a special corner of hell, Lucifer looked around and asked, okay, who played with the thermostat again? Underverse. Solit anew. Lowtown. Naruto sighed as he put away the last of his gear. He'd been amazed that the guards at the gates had allowed them through. Hugh gave them a brief tour. He pointed out the aerodrome and Micah and Naruto had stood transfixed as airships lifted off and flew in the sky. Lodestones. They, along with stones with wind stones, give the ships the ability of flight. Hugh had told them. Naruto had been amazed at the various species that lived in Solit anew. There were humans, demons in animal form, half-breeds and more of all shapes and sizes. Demons when in town are size restrictions. It's all a part of the treaty signed about 10,000 years ago. Hugh said, getting his apprentices to follow him. The bazaar was a sight to see as vendors sold everything from weapons and food to scrolls and clothes and jewelry. Micah had stopped watching children playing a strange game with a ball in a huge orb of water. How are they breathing underwater? He asked. Hugh paused and smiled. Ah, gravity ball. See the chokers each player is wearing? He asked, and after a moment the two gave him a nod. They are spelled to give them the ability to breath underwater. I'm sure you'll pick that up as well in your free time. Hugh said, motioning for them to continue. Some of the players have gills and can breath in and out of water. Some of the mer people live in the lake to the north. He said, and Naruto had seen a girl in the game with slight webs on her hands and feet. He squinted and saw gills on her neck and noticed her skin held a slightly blue tint. Stop ogling girls, you can do that on your time. Hugh said, and Naruto blucked. I wasn't ogling girls, master. I just was seeing some of the mer people you were talking about. Quote. He pointed and Q squinted. Ah, Triton's youngest. Good eye kid, but she's a couple centuries older than you. Q teased and Micah chuckled while Naruto growled. The tour around Solit anew had lasted hours. When Naruto asked what next, Q drifted towards an alley and stopped outside a small stone building that looked like it would be one room only. These are portal rooms. Now you need a travel PTO reach the floating city, but you can take them to Lowtown with no problems. Quote, what about the down zone? Micah asked. There is only one portal and that is under guard in Lowtown. Q said. Now, both of you come on. Quarters are waiting in Lowtown. How do you know that, Master? Micah asked. Simple. I maintain residence here since I was younger than you both. Q chuckled. And trust me, everyone knows that a section of Lowtown is mine. Now come on. The Fox Den should be moderately busy this time of day. You store your gear and we'll get some real food, and not that noodle crap you like. I mean steak and sauce. Both boys could see the shade seem to drool at the thought and they shared a look before laughing and entering the small building. The pentagram in a circle surprised them. Micah looked up and saw a matching one on the ceiling. A guard stood to the side, a bored look on his face. Naruto looked at him and saw he was a man-dog. He wore leather armor with a helm of metal. A long spear was against the wall next to him. Once in the circle, Q smirked as they vanished in a flash of light. Naruto thought that had been the coolest thing ever. Definitely need to get something like that in, he sighed, remembering his thought was to bring it back to Konoha. Damn it, why can't I let go? It's been 17, nearly 18 months. Why can't I stop thinking about it and calling it home? Naruto finished unpacking. The Fox Den was a bar in Lowtown. Naruto nearly jumped out of his skin when they entered and saw it was busy. Kitsunes of all sizes were in there. They damn near stampeded in, greeting Q and asked what the hell happened to him. The Shade spent time explaining to his people what had happened and introduced Micah and Naruto as his bitee. One Kitsune, Shippo, a teenage-looking Kitsune, was drunk and asked, why does the short shit there smell like you, Kyubi? You into boys again? That had gotten the teenage-looking Kitsune pummeled by several vixens, and Kyubi chuckled as he watched. No, Shippo. And being into boys was your thing. You followed that half-breed dog Hanyu around for centuries. Bite me, Shippo said weakly from where he lay after being beaten down by several angry female Kitsune. The training area behind the bar had Naruto looking on in envy. Micah too had a glazed look while Q laughed. You think you're excited now? Wait till the pain starts. Q warned them. He had them go get changed and said they would begin with light meditation, then workout, then more meditation. And after that, I'm going to have you spar against each other in taijutsu and kenjutsu. Q told them. But we don't have swords. Naruto reminded him. Q motioned and two black wooden bakken floated into the air from a rack and floated to Naruto and Micah. Till I tell you otherwise, you will be using these. They are similar to what Kwai had you using. The shock will be greater and will leave genjutsu marks indicating cuts. They are both indestructible and you will be carrying them and using them around Solid anew. Q warned them. You can carry a minimum of 6 kunai and 24 shuriken. What? But that's under-equipped, especially with those fiends out there in the wilds. Naruto complained. The fiends in the wilds won't be your concern for a while. Your first 3 months is going to be learning to connect with Vulna and how to wield it. You won't be going into the wilds anytime soon. You might be doing errands in the upper city to earn cash. Or working the bar. Quote, what? That's cheap. Naruto said and Micah agreed. Don't you have your Kitsune running the bar? Micah asked. I do. But you two would be waiting tables or doing dishes. The shade of Kyubi was glad he was transparent, as the two bakken would have taken his head and his manhood, if he hadn't been a ghost. I think it's going to be a long couple of months. Kyubi thought as he used a telekinetic push to knock both apprentices off their feet, while he summoned up 3 more bakken and they hovered in the air before him. Prepare yourselves, here comes the pain. He laughed at the look on both their faces as they used their hard-earned teamwork to fight off the 3 blades. Naruto's howl of pain and indignation was funny when the first bakken struck him on the, leaving a ragged-looking genjutsu wound and shocken. Him numb to the point where he fell face first into the dirt as his legs wouldn't support him. Shameful. I thought you two were good. Q taunted as Micah fought to keep all 3 blades at bay, and seconds later his own howl of pain filled the air as he got hit on the rear by one and another act his hand and he fell to the dirt next to Naruto, his bakken falling from his wounded hand and nearly hitting Naruto, but missed by a mere inch and leaving a scorch mark on the dirt. Okay. 5-minute break and we'll try that again. Hugh said as he floated away. The two boys growled as they watched the shade of their new sensei flirt with a couple of vixens that were watching and laughing. I really hate him right now. Naruto groaned. Ditto. Micah said as he massaged his wounded hand. Did you catch how he did that? No, you. Naruto answered and asked. Not a clue. This is so going to suck. Naruto groaned as he massaged his numb backside as the genjutsu wounds faded. More than a Uchiha stealing jutsus. Micah agreed. Dude, no one sucks that much, well except Grandma Tsunade at poker. Naruto said after a moment's thought. Well, I did hear she earned the nickname Legendary Sucker, and it wasn't from her losing streak at first. Quote. Both boys laughed. Konoha. Tsunade was besieged by a sneezing fit. Whoa. Shizune said holding the paperwork away from her sensei. Someone's really talking about you. Shut up and give me a tissue. Tsunade said. Jiraiya or Orochimaru must be talking about that night of strip poker. Damn them both and that in camera. Tsunade thought as she sneezed again.